Hosnians, countrymen, lend me your ears. That's right, I'm so excited. We have finished Star Wars Aftermath. We have finished the first book. We have gotten through all of this. We did all of the things. I think it took us about 18 weeks, which was an incredible 18 weeks. It was a ton of fun. If you're not aware of what in space I'm talking about right now, please click on the thing and it'll take you back to the beginning of the playlist. But basically, we kind of chapter by chapter went through Chuck Wendig's Aftermath, and now we're gonna talk about the endgame of the book, which gets me to some stuff I've been really excited to talk to you guys about. So let's start with the interlude. Interlude number 15. We are on Jakku. We meet a fellow by the name of Corwin Ballast, and he's running from war. And this is a story much like something we've seen in many of the interludes, where his family was killed in the crossfire between the rebels and the Imperials. Who knows which side killed his family, and it really doesn't even matter to him. The point is that the war killed his family, and he is out to get in the middle of nowhere, and he wanted to go to the most out in the middle of nowhere place he could find, and he goes to Jakku. Now, the important part of this interlude is the irony that he's trying to hide from a battle on the planet of Jakku. So, we know from The Force Awakens that Jakku is a backwater world, and that hasn't really changed by the time we see it in Aftermath. But what's interesting, and if you've been following current canon, you're aware of this. If you haven't, maybe you just thought about. In The Force Awakens, we see the kind of scavenger fields that Rey would go across. There's all of these crashed ships. There's Star Destroyers, there's New Republic ships, there's all this stuff all over the place. So why is there this giant starship graveyard on a planet nobody cares about? Well, there's the Battle of Jakku. The Battle of Jakku is something that we've seen in Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. If you haven't read that, I also highly recommend it. It's a little bit of Romeo and Juliet in space, and also less stupid than Romeo and Juliet. Yes, I said it. I always promised not to spoil the series too far going ahead, but just for sake of interest, dumping my books, let's just say that this falling Star Destroyer we see on the cover of Empire's End is one we've seen before. The irony is this man went to Jakku to get away from war, and it might not stay away for very long. But this line in it I thought was particularly poignant, which is, "It's a dead place for a man gone dead." So this is probably a sentiment that is found throughout the galaxy, which is just a lot of people that are really sick of war. And I think it's an important thing to talk about, because you talk about, like, evil was just wiped out, right? They just killed the Empire a year before this book. How could people become so complacent to allow the First Order to eventually rise again? Well, and the truth is, because people are just sick of war, and whichever place is just going to win and take over, at least then the fighting stops, and that's kind of this broken soul, broken spirit place that the galaxy is in. Especially remember that the Galactic Civil War is really just a continuation of the Clone Wars, that the war never really stopped for a lot of people, and there's just people who are sick of generations and generations of war. Then we get into part 4, which is, albeit a very short part of the book, but part 4 gives us chapter 38, which is kind of the final resolution of all of these characters. Nora wakes up in a hospital room, because guess what? Nora's not dead. I'm shocked. I thought she actually died this time. And she gets a medal, and there's all this cool patting on the back. I kind of wonder to myself, what did Nora actually do? I think literally everyone else did something, and then Nora was mostly there, almost dying a lot, but Nora got a medal, so good for Nora. We're all very proud of Nora. The important thing is that the crew's going to stay together. So she gets a job with the New Republic, and she's going to keep being out there being a hero, but she's going to be a hero this time with Timon. So instead of leaving him behind, she's going to kind of pull him into the fight, which is actually going to become the next kind of stage, the evolution of their relationship going forward. Jazz and Sinjir are along, and then John Burrell, who I was always saying was part of the Aftermath crew that wasn't with the crew, he's now officially with the crew. And lo and behold, they fix Mr. Bones. So everyone's back together, and this is where the story kind of goes from here. I found that when I reread Aftermath the second time, right, so I read Aftermath, I read Life Debt, and then I went back and reread those two books before I read Empire's End. So Empire's End is the only one that I haven't reread so far. And I really liked Aftermath a lot the second time I read it, and I'm finding that I really enjoyed it now the third time that I read it. I had a little bit of a hard time the first time I read it, and I think it's kind of this disassociation of, when it came out, it was one of the first new canon novels. Now we have several new canon novels, and there's several of them that involve major kind of A-list movie characters. But Aftermath was one of the first books to come out to be like, all right, here's these completely new people that you will only know from a book. You're only ever likely going to know for a book, at least for a short period of time. These are your heroes, go. And it's more my problem than the writer's problem. But for me, I just had to get used to these new people. Like, why do I care who Nora is? Why do I care who Timon is? Why do I care who Jazz is? And every time I reread the book, I can see all the groundwork for the characters laid out, and I can see moments where I'm like, oh, that's such a Sindra moment, or that's such a Timon moment, or that's such a Nora moment. And I can appreciate it now that I've kind of able to connect with these characters, and having read them for 3 books, go, yes, I care about these characters now. I've spent enough time with these characters to give a crap, even though they're not, anybody that's been in the movie, although Snaps Wexley is Timon Wexley. This is kind of the formation of that crew, and where you kind of figure out what the point of the whole first book was, and it's a little bit of a slow burn. But this first book, it really helps make books 2 and 3 phenomenal, because you don't really need any more character exposition, right? So much of what Aftermath 1 does is lay down who the characters are, lay down what their motivations are, lay down what the big deal is for the galaxy, and now in Life Debt and in Empire's End, we're just gonna kind of go. But with that, let's get to Interlude 16, the final interlude of the book. We're back on Chandrila, we're back with the Senator, who is with the reporter and the cameraman that we've seen in a couple different interludes. We last saw them in interlude number 6. So you may remember this was, like I said earlier in the book, and it's when there was a protester who's like throwing fruit at this new senator, and the senator kind of goes over and talks to that person and is like, you know what, your world isn't represented, so we're going to dub you a senator now, and you're going to get to represent your people. But that interlude ends with that senator spotting a procession line of prisoners that are being marched out in public to, whatever detention facility that they're being taken to. This picks up where that interlude left off. And this time the senator is berating somebody who's like marching these prisoners down the road, and the senator makes this big deal about how, no, this is the type of thing the Empire would do. This isn't the type of thing we're gonna do. We're not publicly marching people to a work camp to demoralize them and lift ourselves up. We're not gonna be like the Empire. We're not gonna do it the way they did. This interlude is a very important chapter. I almost just kind of want to read part of it, which is something I said I wouldn't really do, but I think is important. Let's see. If you have the paperback edition, which is what I have, I don't know what it is in hardcover, nor do I particularly know what it is in a digital copy, but it's pages, the bottom of 406, the top of 407 in the paperback copy, and this is what the senator says. The senator says, "This is democracy. It's strange and it's messy. It's not about getting it right, it's about trying to get it right. Yes, it's a bit chaotic. Certainly, we will get some things wrong. The Empire? They cared nothing for democracy. They valued order over everything else. They wanted to be right so badly that anyone who even hinted at getting it wrong or doing it differently was branded the enemy and thrown into a dark prison somewhere. They destroyed other voices so that only their own remained. That is not us. We will not always get it right. We will never have it perfect, but we will listen. We will listen to the countless voices crying across the galaxy. We have opened our ears, and we will always listen. That is how democracy survives. That is how it thrives." Which is a very, very amazing quote. I mean, I think there's probably 10 different ways you could take that, and that passage would probably mean something different to everyone. So if you don't kind of take it the way I did, or you get something different out of it, I think it's open to interpretation, but what's something that's so strong on my mind, seeing the way that we, especially in America right now, are engaging in discourse with each other, and especially online right now, internet discourse, I think it's easy to see evil being done in the world, and to be so angry and hurt by that evil that you want to get back at the evil. Right? There's a difference between defeating evil and needing to, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a difference between defeating evil and needing to be seen defeating evil. So the concept that somebody in the New Republic would want to march Imperial prisoners probably comes out of their own pain of maybe having once been in that very prison line, being marched down a city street, and they're like, I was, or maybe my little sibling was marched in a prison line and then executed, so darn it, we're gonna make these former stormtroopers march in a line too, so they can see how it feels. And it's a very real place out of very real pain. I almost kind of wonder with this senator if she's almost being kind of quick to judge that own pain herself, to assume that it's just another fascist who's ordering this line when it could have just as easily been a victim of fascism. But it's something where when we are hurt by something, we want to hurt back. It is the single most basic human thing we can do, to be hurt and want to hurt back. And I think this passage shows how dangerous it would be for the New Republic to want defeat over the Empire over victory for democracy. Even though it's a semantical difference, it's an important one. If our goal is to see our enemy defeated, if our goal is revenge, then our goal is selfish. If our goal is freedom, if our goal is healing, if our goal is bringing people back together, then that's unselfish. And this is what the New Republic is going through right now. Are they going to make the same mistakes that the Empire did? Either because there's going to be bad people in the New Republic because there's people. Anywhere you have people, some of them are going to be bad. Or because they're people that were hurt and they're just going to respond poorly. Or are they going to kind of grow beyond that and kind of follow these new sets of principles that they want to lay down? And I think it's a very important passage to think about in these books, to think about Star Wars at large, and to kind of think about the world around us and our own discourse with people as we try to deal with what's going on. But with that heavy topic out of the way, let's get to the epilogue, because the epilogue is what I've really been wanting to talk to you guys about, and that is Sloane goes and talks to this mysterious figure, just kind of chilling on a bridge, and she goes up to talk to the guy, and he's like interrupting her and like won't talk to her until he's finished listening and humming a symphony in his head, and he's real quirky, and she finds out that this entire book all went according to his plan, and that this is another thing that I really like. Last week I said how much I like it when like good guys are stuck in with bad guys, and so you're not sure, or it might have been 2 weeks ago, but not sure, do you want the bad guys to get shot down if it means the good guys die too, and it just makes you kind of uncomfortable. What I love about this is I love it when at the end of the first or second act the bad guys win and the good guys don't realize it. Obviously I want to see the good guys win at the end of the third and final act, but before we get to the final resolution, I love this kind of irony. So everything the New Republic is celebrating, Nora getting her fancy medal, and they're gonna go and make this team and go do the stuff. All of it is in this guy's kind of idea what he wanted to have happen. He wanted to get rid of the other Imperials who died. He wanted them dead, preferably, but captured will do, and he wanted the strongest to kind of hold out. And he got that in Sloane, and Sloane proved herself. I should make a note, I didn't say this about chapter 38, but Ada, Sloane's assistant, her kind of like right-hand lady, is captured but alive. And that's going to be an important note when we get into the next book. Keep in mind, when this book came out, we, certainly didn't have The Last Jedi. A lot of people read this even before they saw The Force Awakens. And the first theory that everyone went to was this Snoke at the back of the book. I'm not necessarily going to tell you that it is or isn't, but if you want to know, it's easy enough to find out now, as these books have all been out, and it's kind of resolved whether or not he is or isn't. But there were a lot of other theories. There was wondering if he wasn't Count Vidan back from the dead from the novel A New Dawn, which is also the novel where we first saw Sloane, that sort of thing. But with that, we've finished. It is time to be done with Aftermath, and it is time to read Aftermath Life Debt. And we're going to get right into it next week. First, I kind of considered taking a week off, but I really don't want to. I want to get right into Life Debt. We're going to have kind of a good chunk to read right off at the start. Go ahead and read this little fiddly bit. It's just kind of like a crawl that gets you into the story. But then we're going to have a prelude, which is, or kind of like a prologue, but they called it Prelude. Then you get into part 1, and it's chapters 1 and 2. And we will discuss that next week. But I'm really excited to keep going with this. I'm really excited to get into the second book. Thank you so much for continuing to watch and talk with me while we go through all of this. If you're not already, please follow us on Twitter at Port Haven Forums and visit port-haven.com for even more. I will talk to you next week.